A secret wedding leads to heartbreak when the groom vanishes, leaving the billionaire bride to uncover the mysterious truth behind his disappearance. And if you cherish your family and love videos like this, subscribe to our channel to have 10 years of luck in your life. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton buzzed with carefully controlled excitement as 200 hand-selected guests witnessed the union of Sophia Reynolds and Jamal Ahmed. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the proceedings, while white orchids and roses adorned every surface. The wedding, though lavish, maintained strict confidentiality. No phones were allowed, and security personnel in discreet black suits monitored the perimeter. Sophia, wearing a custom Vera Wang gown that cost more than most people's homes, stood at the altar beside Jamal, who cut an impressive figure in his tailored tuxedo. Despite their obvious differences in background, she the heiress to the Reynolds fortune, he a self-made chef who'd worked his way up from food trucks to Michelin stars. Their genuine affection was apparent to everyone present. The ceremony proceeded smoothly, though keen observers might have noticed the occasional disapproving glance from certain members of the Reynolds family. Near the back of the room, partially obscured by a floral arrangement, stood a figure in an expensive but unremarkable suit. Unlike the other guests who alternated between watching the ceremony and dabbing at their eyes, this individual's gaze remained fixed on the couple with an unsettling intensity. During the exchange of vows, Sophia's voice carried clearly through the room as she promised to stand by Jamal through whatever challenges lay ahead. Jamal's response, though equally heartfelt, seemed to catch slightly in his throat. At the time, guests attributed this to emotion. Later, some would wonder if it had been fear. The reception began at sunset. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that Jamal had personally designed for the occasion. The couple shared their first dance to a live string quartet, and for a moment, everything seemed perfect. The mysterious figure from the ceremony had moved to the bar, still watching, still silent. At precisely 8:47 p.m., Jamal leaned close to Sophia's ear during a quiet moment between songs. "I need to check on something in the kitchen," he whispered. "5 minutes tops. Save me a dance?" Sophia nodded, stealing a quick kiss before he slipped away through the crowd. She watched his retreating form with complete trust, unaware that this would be the last time she would see him that night. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Sophia maintained her composure, though her eyes increasingly darted to the kitchen doors. At 30 minutes, she excused herself from a conversation with guests and went to investigate. The kitchen staff hadn't seen him. The bathrooms were empty. His phone went straight to voicemail. The efficient wedding coordinator, sensing something amiss, initiated a subtle but thorough search of the premises. Guests continued dancing and drinking, oblivious to the growing panic. But as midnight approached and there was still no sign of Jamal, the truth could no longer be contained. Someone called the police. The mysterious figure from earlier had vanished as well, though in the chaos, no one had noted exactly when. Security footage would later show Jamal entering the kitchen, then using a service elevator. After that, nothing. As the ballroom slowly emptied of shocked guests, Sophia stood alone in her wedding dress, surrounded by wilting flowers and half-empty champagne glasses. The perfect white tablecloths now seemed like shrouds, and the gentle music still playing from the abandoned DJ booth felt like mockery. Her wedding ring caught the light as she clutched her phone, desperately calling Jamal's number again and again, each unanswered ring echoing through the deserted venue. The fluorescent lights of the police study cast harsh shadows across Sophia's face as Detective Martinez shuffled papers on his desk. Still in her wedding dress, now wrinkled and stained with tears, she watched him dismiss hours of her testimony with a casual wave of his hand. "Mrs. Reynolds Ahmed," he said, emphasizing the hyphenated name with subtle skepticism. "We see this more often than you'd think. Cold feet, wedding pressure, especially in unconventional marriages." His pause spoke volumes about his assumptions regarding their relationship. Give it 48 hours. He'll probably turn up in Vegas or Atlantic City. Sophia's manicured nails dug into her palms. "You don't understand. Jamal wouldn't just leave. He was excited about our future. We have plans, reservations for our honeymoon in Maldives next week. He's opening a new restaurant in 3 months. This isn't like him. The detective's expression remained unchanged as he typed brief notes into his computer. Any financial troubles? Arguments about prenups? Family disapproval? Each question felt like an accusation. Back at her penthouse apartment, Sophia kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the sofa. The space felt enormous and empty without Jamal's warm presence. His chef's knives still sat in their wooden block in the kitchen. His favorite coffee mug remained unwashed by the sink. Everything looked exactly as it had yesterday morning, yet nothing felt the same. Her phone buzzed. For a moment, hope surged through her chest, but it was just another concerned message from a wedding guest. As she went to dismiss it, something caught her eye. A draft message in her text thread with Jamal, written but never sent, timestamped 8:43 p.m., just minutes before he disappeared. Kitchen basement. Not safe. They found the message ended there. Sophia's hands shook as she read it again and again. What had they found? Who were they? The basement hadn't been mentioned in the police search. Unable to sit still, Sophia began methodically going through Jamal's belongings. His laptop revealed nothing unusual. His phone records showed no suspicious calls. But in the pocket of his favorite chef's coat, she found a business card for Lisa Chen, food photography and consultation, with a handwritten note on the back. If anything happens, find me. It took 3 days of calls and social media searching to track down Lisa Chen. The woman who agreed to meet Sophia at a quiet coffee shop bore little resemblance to the polished professional photo on her website. Lisa's eyes darted constantly to the door, and she clutched her cup with white-knuckled fingers. I shouldn't be here, Lisa said immediately. It's not safe. But Jamal, he's like a brother to me. We grew up in the same neighborhood, learned to cook together in his mother's kitchen. Please, Sophia leaned forward. Anything you know could help. The police aren't taking this seriously, but I know something's wrong. That message he tried to send me. About the kitchen basement? Lisa's face drained of color. He sent that? Oh God. She stood abruptly, gathering her things. I can't talk here. Too many eyes, too many ears. But if you really want to know what happened to Jamal, meet me tomorrow night at the Golden Spatula. It's an old restaurant in Chinatown. Come alone, and don't tell anyone where you're going. As Lisa hurried away, Sophia noticed a man at a corner table quickly averting his gaze. When she looked again moments later, he was gone, leaving behind an untouched cup of coffee and a familiar business card from the wedding venue. The Golden Spatula's neon sign flickered weakly in the rain as Sophia approached the rundown establishment. Lisa waited in a dimly lit corner booth, her fingers nervously shredding a paper napkin. The restaurant was nearly empty, save for an elderly couple enjoying late-night dim sum and a cook smoking by the kitchen door. Before I tell you anything, Lisa whispered, leaning close, you need to understand that this goes deeper than just cooking. The culinary world has a dark underbelly that most people never see. Jamal, he got caught up in something called the kitchen underground. Lisa explained that beneath the surface of legitimate cooking competitions and Michelin stars existed a secret network of high-stakes culinary battles. Chefs competed not just for money, but for rare ingredients, secret recipes, and most importantly, power. These weren't televised Food Network challenges. They were brutal contests where participants sometimes lost more than just their reputation. Jamal entered his first underground competition 6 months ago. Lisa continued, her voice barely audible over the restaurant's humming fluorescent lights. He was brilliant, innovative. He won 3 battles in a row, which almost never happens. But with each victory, the threats started coming. She pulled out her phone, showing Sophia photographs of notes left in Jamal's kitchen. Quit while you can still hold a knife. Some recipes should stay buried. Your last dish will be served cold. Sophia's hands trembled as she scrolled through the images. Why didn't he tell me? He was trying to protect you. The last person who brought family into this. Well, let's just say their restaurant isn't the only thing that burned down. A crash from the kitchen made both women jump. The cook who had been smoking was now staring directly at their table, speaking rapidly into a phone. We need to move, Lisa said urgently. They're watching this place. There's another restaurant, the Crimson Cleaver. It's where most of the underground battles happen. But Sophia, if we go there, there's no turning back. These people, they don't play by normal rules. As they hurried through the rain-slicked streets, Lisa revealed more details about the competition. Chefs were forced to cook with dangerous ingredients, sabotage was common, and the judges were notorious crime figures who demanded perfection. Jamal had been scheduled to compete in a championship battle the night after his wedding. The current champion, Marcus Vance, he's held the title for 5 years, Lisa explained as they turned down a narrow alley. No one knows exactly how he maintains his position, but his challengers have a habit of disappearing or having accidents. They stopped in front of a steel door, marked only with a small red cleaver symbol. Inside, the air was thick with cooking smoke and tension. Dozens of serious-faced chefs worked at gleaming steel stations, while others huddled in corners, speaking in hushed tones. The walls were lined with photographs of previous champions, all wearing the same cold, haunted expression. Vance was there, Sophia suddenly realized. At the wedding, he was the one watching us the whole time. Lisa nodded grimly. He's more than just a chef. Some say he's got connections to organized crime, that he uses the competitions to launder money. But Jamal, he discovered something else. Something about Vance's secret ingredient, his signature dish. Whatever it was, it scared him enough to try to back out of the championship. A tall figure emerged from the kitchen smoke, wearing an immaculate white chef's coat. Marcus Vance's smile didn't reach his eyes as he approached their table. "Ladies," he said smoothly, "I believe you're looking for a missing chef. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private?" Vance led Sophia and Lisa to a private dining room, its walls adorned with antique copper cookware and vintage culinary awards. He moved with calculated precision, each gesture as measured as if he were plating a delicate dish. The room smelled of truffle oil and something else, something metallic that made Sophia's instincts scream danger. "Your husband," Vance began, settling into a high-backed leather chair, was a remarkable talent. Raw, undisciplined, but remarkable nonetheless. It's truly unfortunate that he chose to dig too deep. His fingers traced the rim of a W.I.N.E. glass, the motion hypnotic and threatening. "Where is he?" Sophia demanded, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Vance's smile tightened. "Direct. I appreciate that. Very well, I know exactly where Jamal is. And I'm willing to share that information, but everything has a price in our world. My proposition is simple. I want controlling interest in your family's restaurant supply chain." The request hit Sophia like a physical blow. Reynolds Restaurant Supply was the cornerstone of her family's empire, providing equipment and ingredients to high-end establishments across the country. Giving Vance control would essentially hand him power over countless kitchens. "You're insane," Lisa interjected. "That's worth billions." "Indeed," Vance replied coolly. "In Jamal's life? What's that worth?" Before Sophia could respond, a young chef burst into the room, whispering urgently in Vance's ear. His composed facade cracked slightly. "Excuse me, ladies. A small crisis in the kitchen requires my attention. Consider my offer. You have until midnight tomorrow." As soon as Vance left, Lisa grabbed Sophia's arm. "We need to look around while he's distracted. Jamal told me once that Vance keeps detailed records of everything: blackmail, threats, competition results. There might be something about where they're holding him." They slipped out of the dining room and down a narrow hallway. The kitchen's sounds grew distant as they descended a staircase hidden behind a wine rack. The basement level was a maze of storage rooms and walk-in freezers. In one corner, they found a small office, its doors secured with a keypad lock. "I can't hack that," Sophia whispered, frustrated. Lisa studied the keypad. "You don't need to. Look at the wear patterns on the numbers. Classic chef's mistake. It's probably a date significant to cooking history." After 3 attempts, the door clicked open. August 15th, 1902, the birth date of Julia Child. The office contained filing cabinets and a computer, but what caught their attention was a wall of surveillance monitors showing feeds from cameras throughout the building. One screen showed an empty storage room with a cot in the corner. A plate of untouched food sat on the floor. "That's what they're serving him," Lisa said, examining the footage closer. "Those are traditional punishment dishes in culinary circles. Overcooked, overseasoned, practically ineatable. It's meant to break a chef's spirit." Footsteps echoed down the hallway. They barely managed to slip out and hide behind a stack of boxes before Vance returned, accompanied by two burly men in kitchen whites. Through a gap in the boxes, Sophia watched as they entered a different room, emerging with a laptop and several files. "The competition records are being moved," Lisa whispered. "They're covering their tracks. We need to get into that storage room with the cot, but there are guards everywhere." Sophia's mind raced, remembering every detail of the building's layout. "The ventilation system," she said suddenly. "All these freezers and kitchens. There must be massive air ducts. We could." A hand grabbed her shoulder. They spun around to face one of Vance's security staff, his expression grim. "Mr. Vance would like another word," he said firmly. The security guard led them not back to the private dining room, but through a series of underground tunnels connecting several buildings in the district. They emerged in what appeared to be an abandoned restaurant kitchen, but the equipment was state-of-the-art and the space immaculate. Around them, a dozen chefs worked in complete silence, their movements mechanical and fearful. This was the heart of the rival cooking group, the Butchers' League, as Lisa quietly explained. Unlike the regular underground competitions, this organization operated with military precision. Each chef wore a black uniform with a red cleaver emblem, and their stations were arranged like surgical theaters. In the center of the kitchen, they found Jamal. He sat slumped in a chair, his chef's whites dirty and torn. His normally bright eyes were dull, and his hands, his precious hands that could craft culinary masterpieces, trembled slightly. When he saw Sophia, his expression shifted from resignation to terror. "You shouldn't have come," he managed to say before a tall figure stepped between them. "Mrs. Reynolds Ahmed," the man said, his accent crisp and cultured. "I'm Gerard DuPont, though in certain circles, I'm known as the executor. Your father and I have history." Sophia's mind raced. DuPont. The name surfaced from childhood memories. He had been her father's business partner in a chain of high-end restaurants 20 years ago, before a mysterious falling out. The restaurants had closed overnight, and DuPont had vanished. "Your husband discovered something rather interesting while preparing for the championship," DuPont continued, circling Jamal's chair like a shark. "A certain financial arrangement between your father's company and various shell corporations. Money laundering, tax evasion, health code violations, all very mundane, but terribly damaging if exposed." Lisa edged closer to Sophia, whispering, "The competition isn't just about cooking. It's a front for something bigger." DuPont snapped his fingers, and one of the black uniformed chefs brought forward a laptop. "Your father's entire operation depends on maintaining certain relationships. Restaurant health inspectors, suppliers, critics. When I lost everything 20 years ago, I spent my time building a new network. Underground, invisible. And now, it's time for the Reynolds empire to fall." Jamal suddenly spoke up, his voice hoarse. "Show her the footage." The laptop displayed security camera video from the Reynolds restaurant supply warehouse. Workers were unloading unmarked crates late at night, replacing health inspection labels, altering expiration dates. Another video showed high-end ingredients being switched with inferior products, the original items disappearing into unmarked vans. "Your father's perfect reputation? Built on fraud," DuPont said with satisfaction. "And your new husband was going to expose it all. Such a noble intention, but terribly inconvenient." The competition, Sophia realized. It was never about cooking. You used it to gather information, to find dirt on powerful people in the industry. DuPont smiled coldly. "Leverage is the finest ingredient of all. Now, you have a choice. Walk away. Leave Jamal, leave the investigation, let things continue as they have. Or stay and watch everything your family built crumble." Before Sophia could respond, alarms blared throughout the building. One of the black uniformed chefs rushed in. "Police! They're raiding the Crimson Cleaver." The kitchen erupted into chaos. Chefs abandoned their stations, documents were shoved into shredders, and computer drives were quickly removed. In the confusion, Lisa managed to slip behind DuPont and work on loosening Jamal's restraints. In the midst of the chaos, Jamal, now partially freed, leaned close to Sophia and spoke rapidly. "It's worse than money laundering. DuPont's been poisoning the restaurant industry from the inside for years. The competition winners? They become his puppets, placed in strategic positions throughout the culinary world. But I found proof of something bigger. His voice shook as he continued. Remember that food poisoning outbreak last year that shut down our biggest competitor? It wasn't an accident. DuPont's organization orchestrated it all. They've been systematically destroying restaurants that won't play by their rules. But your father, Jamal, swallowed hard. He knew. He's been helping them, protecting them in exchange for eliminating his competition. Lisa worked frantically at the last of Jamal's restraints while keeping watch. "We need evidence," she whispered. "Something concrete that can't be shredded or deleted." "The recipe's Jama," Elle said urgently. "DuPont keeps a special cookbook. Everything's coded in there. Health code violations are listed as alternative preparation methods. Restaurant targets are disguised as specialty dinner services. Every criminal operation is documented in that book because he's obsessed with keeping records, just like a recipe." Sophia's mind raced. Where? His private office upstairs. Black leather binding, gold embossed with a cleaver. But it's guarded, and the room has biometric security. The sound of boots and shouting grew closer. DuPont's organization was executing what appeared to be a well-rehearsed evacuation protocol. Chefs were destroying evidence with practiced efficiency, wiping down surfaces, burning documents in industrial ovens. "I have an idea," Lisa said, pulling out her phone. "Remember those photos I took of the threats against Jamal? I saved them all, including the metadata. They prove a pattern of intimidation, and some of them came from email addresses inside your father's company, Sophia." A crash echoed from above as police breached another section of the building. DuPont's voice cut through the chaos, ordering his people to move to secondary location C. His footsteps headed toward his office. "He'll take the cookbook," Jamal said. "It's his insurance policy against everyone involved, including your father. That's why I was taken. I saw him with it at the wedding, recognized what it was from my time in the competition. He couldn't risk me warning you." Sophia made a split-second decision. "Lisa, get Jamal out through the tunnels. I'm going after that book." "Sophia, no jamal pleaded. You don't understand what these people are capable of." "I understand exactly what they're capable of now," she replied, her voice hard. "They tried to destroy you, tried to use our wedding as a cover for their operation. I won't let them hurt anyone else." Lisa produced a small canister from her pocket. "Take this. Industrial-grade pepper spray, strong enough to disable even someone wearing protective kitchen gear. Most chefs carry it in case of grease fires, but..." Sophia grabbed the canister and moved toward the stairs, hearing Jamal's whispered "be careful" behind her. The upper floor was already partially evacuated, smoke from burned documents filling the air. Through the haze, she saw DuPont entering his office, alone. The investor conference room at Reynolds Tower buzzed with tension as Sophia clutched her laptop bag, the stolen cookbook hidden inside. After escaping DuPont's office through a service entrance, leaving him temporarily incapacitated from the pepper spray, she'd spent the night digitizing every page of damning evidence. The morning's emergency board meeting had been called to address concerning market rumors, but Sophia knew it was really about her father trying to maintain control. The laptop contained not just photos of the cookbook, but also Lisa's documented threats, surveillance footage from the competition venues, and financial records showing the connection between Reynolds Supply and DuPont's organization. As she waited for her turn to speak, Sophia noticed a man in a dark suit enter the room, his hand suspiciously positioned under his jacket. Through the glass walls, she spotted two more similar figures positioning themselves near the exits. DuPont's people had infiltrated the building. Her phone vibrated, a text from Lisa. "Track TO your location. Get out now." But it was too late. The board chairman was already introducing her, and all eyes turned expectantly in her direction. Her father sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable, but his fingers drummed nervously on the polished wood. Sophia stood, connecting her laptop to the presentation screen. The first slide appeared, a simple spreadsheet showing delivery schedules. Normal enough, except for the coded annotations that, thanks to DuPont's cookbook, she could now decrypt. "Before I continue," she began, "I should mention that copies of everything I'm about to show you have been sent to multiple secure locations. Any attempt to stop this presentation will result in immediate release to the authorities and media. The man in the dark suit shifted uncomfortably, but remained in position. As Sophia moved through her presentation, the room's atmosphere changed from skepticism to shock. She revealed how DuPont's organization had infiltrated health inspections, manipulated supplier certifications, and orchestrated the downfall of competing businesses. With each revelation, her father's face grew paler. Halfway through explaining a particularly complex money laundering scheme, the fire alarm blared. Security protocol would require immediate evacuation, disrupting her presentation. But Sophia had anticipated this. "The alarm is false," she announced firmly. "And if anyone leaves this room, the files go public immediately." The suit-wearing men exchanged glances, clearly uncertain how to proceed without explicit orders. One reached for his phone, but found no signal. Lisa had arranged a localized signal jammer, another trick learned from their time investigating the underground competitions. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the conference room. Through the glass walls, Sophia saw Lisa sprinting past, pursued by more of DuPont's men. The distraction was planned. While attention focused on the chase, Jamal was quietly escorting a USB drive containing evidence to the FBI agents waiting in the lobby. But DuPont's organization wasn't finished. The lights cut out, plunging the room into darkness save for the glow of the presentation screen. When emergency power kicked in seconds later, Sophia found a small red dot dancing on her chest, a laser sight. "Ms. Reynolds," a voice called from the doorway. "I believe it's time to conclude your presentation." The anonymous threats began arriving within hours of her interrupted presentation. First, a perfectly arranged plate of sushi was delivered to her office, each piece containing a tiny scroll with a different warning. Then came the elaborate pastry box, the treats inside shaped like broken fingers. Finally, a reservation confirmation for a last meal arrived, scheduled for the following evening. Sophia sat in her secured penthouse, surrounded by private security, yet feeling more vulnerable than ever. The threats weren't just aimed at her anymore. Her phone constantly buzzed with reports. Lisa's photography studio had been vandalized, all her equipment destroyed. 3 health inspectors who had agreed to testify suddenly withdrew their statements. Even the FBI agents assigned to protect Jamal reported suspicious vehicles following them. "They're trying to isolate us," Lisa said during their secure video call. Her usually confident demeanor had cracked, showing the strain of constant surveillance. "Break us down one by one until we're too scared to continue." Sophia stared out her window at the city lights, remembering how she and Jamal used to dream about which restaurants they would visit together. Now every lit window felt like it could hide a watching eye, every passing car a potential threat. "I keep thinking about what we found in DuPont's book," Lisa continued, her voice dropping to a whisper despite the encrypted connection. "The way they've twisted everything sacred about cooking into weapons, using food critics to extort restaurants, turning chef competitions into gladiatorial rings, poisoning people to manipulate stock prices." A soft knock interrupted their conversation. Sophia's security team had swept the package that arrived, another elaborate threat, this time a wedding cake topped with a miniature bride in mourning clothes. The craftsmanship was exquisite, making the message even more chilling. "I never wanted this life for you," Lisa admitted suddenly. "When Jamal first told me he was dating a Reynolds, I warned him, said it would only end in heartbreak. The rest, you're an industry, there's so much money involved, so much power. Normal people like us, we're just ingredients to them. Disposable." Sophia touched the screen where Lisa's image flickered. "You're not disposable. None of us are. That's why we have to finish this. But at what cost?" Lisa's voice cracked. "My entire career is ruined. My reputation in the industry is destroyed. Every chef who ever worked with me is being investigated. And Jamal, even if he survives this, no restaurant will ever hire him again. We'll be blacklisted forever." The weight of responsibility pressed down on Sophia's shoulders. Her wealth couldn't protect them from an industry-wide conspiracy. Her family connections were worthless when her own father was implicated. For the first time in her life, she felt truly powerless. But then she noticed something about the wedding cake threat. a tiny detail in the craftsmanship that triggered a memory. The fondant work, the specific shade of food coloring, the unique way the sugar flowers were crafted. She'd seen this style before. "Lisa," she said urgently, "remember that pastry chef from the competition? The one who always wore dark glasses and never spoke? He's making these threats, and if we can track him, we can find DuPont's new base of operations." Lisa finished, a spark of hope returning to her eyes. The annual International Culinary Excellence Awards ceremony transformed the city's convention center into a glittering showcase of the food world's elite. Under the crystal chandeliers, hundreds of renowned chefs, critics, and industry leaders gathered to celebrate, unaware they were about to witness their carefully constructed world implode. DuPont stood at the center of it all, preparing to accept the Lifetime Achievement Award. His redemption story had been carefully crafted. The fallen restaurateur who had rebuilt his empire from nothing, now controlling some of the most acclaimed establishments in the country. The ceremony would cement his legitimacy and, more importantly, provide cover for a massive transfer of power in the underground culinary network. Sophia and Lisa monitored the proceedings from a makeshift command center in the building's electrical room. Surveillance feeds showed them everything. The nervous servers, all DuPont's people, the armed security disguised as waitstaff, and most importantly, the industrial kitchen where Jamal was being held. "They're using the ceremony as cover," Lisa whispered, watching DuPont's men move through the crowd. "Anyone who might oppose them is here, all in one place. Perfect opportunity to send a message." The kitchen feed showed Jamal, forced to prepare the evening's main course under armed supervision. But something was off about his movements. The usual fluid grace of his cooking replaced by rigid, mechanical actions. "He's trying to tell us something," Sophia realized, studying his hand movements. "That's not his normal knife technique. It's Morse code." Lisa quickly decoded his movements. Dessert poisoned. Selective targets. The pieces clicked together. The elaborate dessert course would only be served to specific tables, those occupied by people who had opposed DuPont's organization. The symptoms would appear random, impossible to trace back to a single source. By the time anyone realized what had happened, DuPont's takeover would be complete. Sophia reached for her phone to alert the authorities, but Lisa grabbed her wrist. "Wait, we need proof that links everything together. If we stop this now, they'll just try again somewhere else." The ceremony proceeded into the main course. On screen, they watched DuPont prepare to take the stage for his acceptance speech. But as he stood, a commotion erupted in the kitchen. Jamal had broken free, using a rolling pin to disable two guards. He grabbed a chef's knife and ran, not toward freedom, but deeper into the kitchen complex. "What is he doing?" Lisa hissed. "The exit is the other way." "He's going for DuPont's private dining room," Sophia realized, "where they keep the real records." But before they could move to help him, the door to their hiding place swung open. Standing there was the last person they expected to see, someone whose betrayal would change everything. "Hello, sweetheart," said Sophia's father, leveling a gun at his daughter. "I'm afraid I can't let you interfere with tonight's service." The final confrontation unfolded in the convention center's grand kitchen, where the gleaming stainless steel surfaces reflected the mounting tension. Charles Reynolds, Sophia's father, kept his gun trained on his daughter, while DuPont emerged from the shadows, still wearing his ceremonial chef's whites. "I built this empire from nothing," Charles said, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion. "When your mother died, the restaurants were all I had left. Then DuPont showed me how vulnerable we were. Health inspectors who could be bought, critics who could destroy us with a single review, suppliers who could cut us off without warning. I did what I had to do to protect our legacy." "By becoming exactly what you feared," Sophia challenged, her voice steady despite the weapon pointed at her. "By poisoning innocent people, destroying honest businesses, turning the entire industry into a criminal enterprise?" DuPont laughed softly. "Your father understood something you never did, my dear. The culinary world has always been about power. We simply made the underlying reality visible. Every great chef is a warrior, every kitchen a battlefield, every meal a potential weapon. From their hidden surveillance position, Lisa watched Jamal continue his desperate search through DuPont's private offices. He finally found what they needed, a hidden safe behind a painting of Julia Child, containing decades of evidence. Blackmail materials, financial records, and a list of every chef and restaurant owner who had been coerced into cooperation. "Your wedding was supposed to be perfect," Charles continued, his hand shaking slightly. "Jamal would join the family business, learn our ways, become part of the system. Instead, he chose to play hero. He chose to be honest," Sophia corrected. "Something you've forgotten how to be." Suddenly, the kitchen doors burst open. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn, led by the food critics who had been undercover in the dining room. DuPont's security team was quickly overwhelmed, but the man himself remained eerily calm. "You really think this changes anything?" DuPont smiled. "The entire industry is built on our foundation now. Arrests? Trials? The system will protect itself. Your father understands that, don't you, Charles?" But Charles Reynolds was staring at his daughter, seeing for the first time the strength and conviction in her eyes, his late wife's eyes. The gun wavered, then lowered. "No," he said quietly. "It ends here." DuPont's smile vanished. He reached into his chef's coat, but before he could withdraw whatever weapon he had hidden, Jamal emerged from the office, holding the damning evidence. "It's over," Jamal said. "Every name, every crime, every connection, it's all here. And copies have already been sent to every major news outlet and law enforcement agency." The arrests and trials that followed would shake the culinary world to its core. Dozens of prominent figures were implicated, hundreds of illegal operations exposed. The underground cooking competitions were disbanded, their venues shuttered. Months later, Sophia and Jamal stood in the kitchen of their new restaurant, smaller than what they had originally planned, but honest. Lisa's photographs hung on the walls, documenting their journey. Charles Reynolds watched the opening from his prison cell, finally understanding that true legacy isn't built on power, but on integrity. As they served their first guests, Sophia and Jamal exchanged glances, knowing that while the meal before them was simple, it was CISO. Ned was something no amount of money could buy: truth.